See, this work, yeah. I may be sitting too close to you, but it doesn't.
Citizens. That's it. I couldn't figure out the C.
Come to these offices. Curious if this is a typical turnout or is there an issue going on? Is it sewers or something, roads?
Right in there. Yeah, oh, yeah. So where the county is hiring a consultant. There's one's over on their HVAC system using COVID. I talked to the finance director, she said it's no brainer.
We've been a couple times, yeah.
Then you have to take up the road commission.
Hey Mike, did you see where the county is letting consulting contracts for HVAC? No, I didn't think so. They're gonna have a consultant check all their airflow soon. The finance director said it's a no-brainer using COVID.
Two dogs, two cats. She flies two sides for the senior system.
Did you have some sort of incident or call or?
She's coming over late today with her dog. I like it.
Because I'm sure Lori's doing it.
Yeah, and then Lawrence is dead.
Pretty nice summer.
Oh my goodness. Except for the last 2 days, I haven't had 101 miles.
My first husband, yeah, they did.
She is very.
We were married 17 right back years when he was.
It does, it locks it right up, makes it good road.
We'll go can't retire.
She's here. Betsy. She's really good too.
Let's call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call. Madam Clerk.
Kramer? Webb here, Ridley?
Here.
Blasvik? Here. And Janet? Here.
Minutes. You have a chance to look at the minutes.
I had, one thing about the minutes, I hope in the future that we can put a little bit more about the, committee reports, cause those are important to have down there for, months and years ahead of time, like, in the future, I mean, so we know what was reported, because that is their report to us, and we should, put that down so it becomes record, so, in the future, I hope you do that.
Thank you. Motion to approve, motion to approve the minutes. Bobby makes a motion, support it. Don, all in favor?
Aye.
The agenda. I would like to add one thing, and that's road signs. I just spoke to Mr. Williams about this. Road signs on number 17, to be very brief. We don't know exactly what where we're going with that, but I did promise I might give a discussion. Dan? I have that on DDA appointment. other thing, just a moment. Oh, darn it. Somebody got some bubble wrap out there, something like that, and I just lost it. Oh, I know, library report.
You'll put that up.
Library report on reports, because it wasn't on there. Should be on there. Any more? Okay, motion to adopt the agenda
With the changes?
with the changes. Bonnie makes it, is there support?
Support.
Jan supports, all in favor? Okay, public comment on agenda items. If you have a public comment, come to the podium, please. On the agenda items, go ahead.
I just have a comment about Hiawatha Road abandonment. There's been a public access since I've been here. We are supposed to be basically a tourist-oriented community, from what I see. You start closing right-of-ways to the lake, you're going to have some closures, other closures, you're setting a precedence.
Any more public comment? Okay, public comment is closed. Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss somebody?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
This is my regular public comment. I would like the board to get credit for overtly considering any opportunities that they have to recuse themselves from agenda items, voting, or discussing, for which they could have a conflict of interest.
Thank you. Public comment?
I guess a quick question, is this, later on the agenda, we're gonna be talking about the road abandonment.
Yes.
The board will be.
The board will be talking about it,
Or
not,
we won't be
no.
talking about it.
Right, the comment you're making now, if you have a comment. Yeah.
The only comment I have regarding that, the road abandonment that you're gonna be discussing later is, please explain to us how you plan to implement that, because everybody in our neighborhood is very confused about how it would be, if it were abandoned, who's going to be in charge?
You talking about Hiawatha or Slope?
The Hiawatha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's just very, very unclear as to what the ramifications are of abandoning that road. What does it mean for the township? What does it mean for the neighborhood? Who would then be in charge? Who would maintain it? Who would make decisions about it? We're just totally baffled by this whole proposal, so please, when you guys discuss it, please explain to us what you have in mind.
Public comment, yes, sir?
Yeah, Mike Saker. Public access, we've lost several around the lake. That's our way, lean back ladders, however you wanna call us, how we get on the lake. In the winter, in the summer, go down fishing. We got public access around this lake that has grown up. There's trees in them and everything. Who takes care of the access? Is it the township or is it the road commission? We need to have these all addressed and brought up so people like myself and grandkids, everything can get to the lake. If you keep closing them, then I guess it's a private lake then. If that's what they want, I hope they don't get it.
Thanks, sir. Public comment, yes, sir, Mr. Fulford.
I have a comment, I'm Brian Fulford. I have a comment on the discussion for Hiawatha. The plat, when it was done in the 1920s, it was a careful implementation of the laws at the time. The dedication is clear in that the purpose of the roads, one of the purposes was to provide public access. It's very plain on the plat. Every lot owner that lives in the plat is aware of that when they purchase their lot. And I think it would be a very huge disservice for the board to turn back 100 years of history and the wishes of the proprietors who made the plat and take any motion towards abandoning that road, because it's very important to keep these public ways open. And I think, once again, I'm not trying to jab anybody, but every lot owner is aware that this plat is recorded, it's been recorded, duly recorded, and it's very plain on the face of the plat that they are dedicated to the public. And that's all I have to say.
sir. Public comment, yes, sir.
My name's Dustin Saker, I live on Shawnee Avenue, and I believe it's part of the plat that we're talking about. And I just heard about this morning. From what I understand, I would still have access the way they wanna do this. That being said, I'm totally 100% against it. This is a public access. And with all due respect to lakefront owners and riparian rights, it is public. Like Brian just said, that's the way it was written so many years ago, and to take away another access from taxpayers in this township it's stupid.
Thanks, sir. Public comment? Agenda items? Okay. Public comment is closed. Agenda items. Correspondence? We received several. Thanks for making this up, Don. We did get a public notice for Emmett County-wide, the recreation plan, which we share with each other. We got a letter from the Straits Land Resorter and the Swansons objecting to the FOIA process. We have 7 emails objecting to Slocum Road closure, which is not on the agenda, and 1 email supporting Hiawatha Road abandonment. So that's our, if you'd like copies of anything, you're more than welcome to, I'll make copies for you. That would be correspondence. Treasurer's report, Bobby?
All right, general accounts, $2,642,161.14. That's not on. And tax accounts, $625.20.52. Those are with interest, not balanced. And then we have bills, there's all copies of bills.
Copies of the bills.
I have a couple questions on the bills, let me find them here. Okay, I see that we wrote 2 checks to IT Right, and I understand one should be the annual contract. Are they both part of the annual contract, or is, there's this one and this one?
It's on the numbers. I believe there's a possibility because the police use them as well, probably, and I can't see the jail numbers, but I would guess, Dawn, one of them's police, one of them's ours.
Okay, and then there was 2 checks to Mesa totaling $22,726. I was wondering why there was 2 checks to that.
That's insurance.
2 months.
2 months.
Okay, and then we wrote 2 checks to ourselves, to Tuscarora Township.
Yeah.
I was wondering why we're writing checks to ourselves.
2 are O&M, and so the
Okay.
libraries is a separate check from the police and ours.
Okay, and the Great Lakes Fireworks was $5,000, right? Is that the total amount, or is that just a deposit, or?
Balance due. So we made
Balance
a
due.
deposit.
Okay.
$5,000. We pay half upfront.
Can I ask what the fireworks cost last year?
10.
Oh, I thought it was 20. That's a pretty good deal.
Okay. I think that should do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to pay the bills?
I make the motion.
Jan makes a motion. There's support?
Sport.
Bob supports. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bobby? Police report, Gordon?
So with the street project being done, I think we've seen more pedestrian traffic than we ever have in this town. But we're having a lot of issues with crosswalks. We've got drivers complaining that pedestrians are stepping out in front of them. We've got pedestrians complaining that traffic isn't stopping. I've been working with you, Mike, on getting signs at each crosswalk. But I was kind of hoping we could do something similar to like what Sheboygan does, and actually put the signs in the middle of the street. It says crosswalk yield, coming and have them north and south at each crosswalk. I understand we have to have an ordinance to do that. With your permission, I would like to look into that maybe this fall and maybe either get that implemented, or we can go back to talking about getting the speed reduced to 25 miles an hour. But I think with all the pedestrian traffic this summer, one of those 2 things needs to happen.
May I comment? I've always been concerned about the speed. I can't even get out on the highway most of the time, and when I do, I gotta put it to the floor, or I'll be there all day. And as I drive through other communities, especially in the UP, I mean, all these downtowns, it's 25 miles an hour. And I just think with this beautiful, wonderful change that the DDA has worked so hard on, I think we we need to slow down the traffic. And as our downtown becomes more and more popular, it's gonna get worse. It's just gonna get worse. And then the other comment, Chief, with the crosswalks in the middle, have you talked to the road commission?
Well, we have, and they're the ones that told us that we have to have an ordinance in order to do that.
Oh, okay.
Basically, Parks and Rec would be responsible for putting them out in the spring, and then they would be responsible
Oh,
for taking
they're
them out in the fall.
temporary.
Yeah,
So
They're
they're
heavy
temporary.
ballast.
Got it.
Wouldn't have to worry about the snow plowing in the wintertime. But the city of Sheboygan owns the roads. They're all owned by the city of Sheboygan.
I
They
see.
own them, they put them in, they maintain them. Because we would be putting them out on a county road, they would require us to have some kind of an ordinance. So
I make a
one of
motion
those-
that we allow the chief to dig into all of this and report back.
I second that.
All in favor?
Are we doing both?
Wait a minute.
Digging in is
Well,
to create an
Well,
ordinance?
wanna look
I'm looking for an answer. Do you
Yeah,
guys
we,
wanna look at?
you and I have been investigating it, so
But do we wanna look at a 25-mile-an-hour speed reduction, or do we
Well-
wanna look at the?
I'd rather do that first.
we
I
talked
agree.
about this because the, last time we did a speed study, the average speed was 41 miles an hour.
All right, I amend my motion to ask the chief to look into 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Well, we'd have to do a speed study, so we're gonna request a speed study. So, I mean, that's what it gets you, we can't arbitrarily
Yes,
change it.
I understand.
So, we're gonna be investigating a speed study on Straits Highway, there's a motion.
I'll support that.
Bobby, all in favor?
And I was asked this morning about the stats and whether having 7 felony arrests is common. It actually is here in the summer, however, this month, that was kind of bleed over from last month. There were ongoing investigations. That's why we had 7 felony arrests this month. And then the last thing is we have 2 very old MCDs in our patrol cars. It's going to cost about $6,500 to replace those 2 MCTs. I do have it in my budget, but I need permission.
What's that mean,
MCT, I'm sorry, those are mobile data terminals in our patrol cars. The
Okay.
computers that are inside our patrol cars.
And
That
you wanna
hook
do
to
what?
CCE. But it's gonna cost over $3,500. Actually, I'm looking at about $6,500 for the 2 new laptops and $2,000 in the special stand that it has to go into. Because it's over $3,500, I have to have board approval before I can spend the
You're
money.
not
make
gonna
a
put those
motion.
in the cars that you're getting rid of, are you?
I am, and here's why. I cannot get any new patrol cars. They're looking until April or May next year.
Yeah, I was.
They have shut down all the police fleets because they can't get computer chips for them.
Will you be able to get them before the end of the fiscal year, do you think?
I'm hoping I can, but I
We're
don't
talking
know.
2, right?
Yes.
Can I make a motion that
Approve the expenditure.
approve the expenditure?
Jen, with motion,
I second.
Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Reports, DDA, Dan?
Got good comment already just from the police chief that we have more walkers. The understanding is that I would say that we'd probably be able to do the 25 miles per hour because when you look at the traffic going through town, it's definitely slowed down. So that being said, streetscape is moving along well. We still have some lighting problems down here that we have to address. We're waiting for consumers to give us permission to hang the lights on the poles. We don't have that yet. We're still discussing finishing the sidewalk down by Citizens Bank. We have a couple little things that we're waiting for okays on before we finalize everything on the thing. We have some little bit of sidewalks that we want to address after we get finalized with them. I see they just dropped off the other bench this morning.
Did that?
Yeah, down by the Sturgeon.
Oh, is it
Yeah, Elmer's was down there this morning dropping off the bench, so, that was another thing that we were waiting on. So, other than that, everything seems to be going real good.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
Are we gonna be able to accommodate the Patton family on their,
I'm sorry.
are we gonna be able to accommodate the Patton family on their previous request?
That's one of the things that are still,
Okay.
we're still working on it.
And-
Trying to get, I've already contacted a couple of contractors for the cement work. but the problem is, everybody is so busy,
I
as
know,
we all know.
I know. We
You
understand.
can't even get them to write a bid for you right now.
I just wanna make a comment, I've said it in your DDA meetings, but I just wanna commend you and your board for this incredible downtown. I thank you so much for years of hard work, it's just incredible. And you should be very proud, I know all of us are. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. And we did get the lights put on. If you haven't seen the sturgeon at night when the lights are on,
Oh, it's awesome.
It's awesome. We'll go by at night when the lights are on, and we're not done there. We're gonna be putting signs up. Our Indian River sign, we're gonna be putting a welcome to Indian River sign somewhere up in.
Somewhere up in there, yeah. And we're still talking about the kiosks down there and things like that, so.
Okay. You have a recommendation for DDA position?
Yes, I'm sorry. DDA recommends that Sue Fisher be put on our board.
On the DDA?
She doesn't have anything to do.
So we.
Whose position is she filling?
Mike Sakers,
Yeah, Mike.
retired. He told me a long time ago, as soon as that was done, he was done. So I think when they came through, that smell wasn't dry and he was out. He was gone.
I think we owe Mike a big hand for all the work.
Yeah,
he's
thanks,
done.
Mike. So Sue is filling his term, and she's been a tremendous aid to the DDA all along anyway. Not looking at your calendar and backing out, are you?
No, I'm asking, is it a, what's it?
I don't know, how many years were left on your, well, no, it'd be 3 years.
No, Mike's was done.
Yeah,
Mike's
you were
term was done,
3
so
years.
she'd be taking Mike's.
Yeah.
Are you sure you wanna do
3
this?
years, but yes.
So,
I'll make that motion.
Bobby makes a motion, is there support?
I support.
Deanne supports, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Good luck,
Thank you,
Sue. We're
Thanks,
putting you
Sue.
back to work.
I sympathize with you.
Okay, Park Commission, Doug, you got anything to report?
Oh, Summerfest went great, I thought. Everything, it was a clean event, everything went well. Hoping boat races go well. We got a ton of projects going right now. Working down at the new seawall, getting that going in. We're going to switch to concrete instead of a boardwalk on that. Just busy.
Things are looking good, thank you, Doug.
I have a question.
Yes.
Have you decided whether you're gonna be able to fell that tree or?
The biggest one? The big white pine?
Yeah, the ones that's in the way of the monument.
Yeah, that we'll see where we're at as we go along.
But you won't need a building permit for concrete, correct?
Correct.
So you'll only now need a building permit for the monument.
Right.
Wonderful. One other question. Will the concrete go from the road so a person in a wheelchair can?
We wanna make it.
Okay, so we'll be totally compliant.
Yep.
Wonderful.
We talked about, there isn't no parking, but the temporary parking in front of the garage for handicap parking,
Sure.
somebody can.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so,
I mean, with federal and state law these days and our promises to the state, that's wonderful.
Planning Commission, we got everything to report? Planning Commission, Dawn?
Nope, nothing
I
new.
don't think so. Library, Helen?
Okay, the summer reading program's coming to an end next week. We're gonna have Mike Ridley sing on Thursday, and on Friday we have a nature talk from Hartwick Pine State Park. And we've added, we're in the process of adding 2 new e-services. One is up and running, Creative Bug, and that'll go in conjunction with our makerspace room, and in the pipe is Hoopla. And we've added to our hours, and September 1, Kelsey Rakowski starts as the new director.
Okay, thank you, Helen. I hope, encouraging you all to visit the library if you haven't and use it, because it is just such a tremendous resource that you're supporting, and it is just a phenomenal place. Thank you. Sewer report, Mr. Kramer?
There is no change to what I submitted to the board. It's in your packet. It's also online for the public under sewer expansion project. I will be adding one document that we talked about in our subcommittee meeting, which is the availability of low-income grants and loans if in fact the sewer system ever comes into play. And
successful, unbelievably successful in earmarking $3.5 million that has passed the House of Representatives. He will be here Friday at 2. Trustee Vance and I will escort him through the district, or the proposed district. Then he'll come back and meet with Mr. Swanson and then on to Hal Marine. So subject to your questions, that's all I have.
Is the general public aware of the money that's been in committee, grant?
I'm sorry?
The Stabenow's, did you make that? Is that?
Yeah, it's in the report.
Okay.
But Senator Stabenow, likes Congressman Bergman, put forward the full $14.8 million to the Senate committee. We'll see what happens. As you know, in the House, it got cut to 3.5. And it wasn't just our project, that was the ceiling. And Senator Peters put in for $2 million.
$2 million.
But there's no decision been made by either the subcommittee or the full committee. It's very early.
You and Don had thank you for your sewer report. You and Don had a security analysis report meeting with IT, right? Could you explain what's going on?
I'll let Dawn do that.
We had a Microsoft Teams meeting with Tom Conway from IT Right last week, and and basically we failed on in a number of areas. We did give them authorization to make some changes, and they're going to report back, and he suspects that the failure rate will be greatly reduced. Some of them were things like, we're not changing our passwords often enough, which I hate doing.
And some changes to the server, minor changes.
Yeah, some minor changes to the server.
At no charge to us, by the way, board
Yeah.
members.
So as soon as we get that report back, then we can discuss amongst ourselves and figure out the things that, he said we could actually make stipulations, like maybe our passwords are only 5 characters instead of 14, or maybe we change once every 60 days instead of every 30 days or 90 days, whatever. There were some things that we could actually do.
Dawn, I think we might want to reassure the board, although we can't guarantee that we're protected from a ransom attack. It seems like his analysis was that we're in pretty good shape because of the cloud backup and the server to cloud backup on a regular basis.
Good to know. Thank you very much. We have a guest tonight, Judge from the Circuit Court, Judge Aaron Gauthier, wants to talk to us briefly.
Okay, thank you very much, and I won't take long. I know you have a busy agenda. I like to come around once a year to all of our municipal boards and township boards in Sheboygan County, give you a brief update on circuit court operations and answer any questions that the board might have, because it's your circuit court after all. Again, we handle felony crimes, property law, family law, divorce, appeals from the district court, zoning appeals, civil lawsuits over $25,000. The circuit court is what they call the trial court of general jurisdiction. So the probate and district court are a little more specialty. The circuit court is your general trial court. I just want to talk about 2 things. One is our operations, and then our drug court program again, a couple changes to that. So our operations, we're now in post-pandemic operations approved throughout the state. That means kind of back to the way things were, but with 2 changes. One, we have a lot of new toys to use with Zoom and YouTube, as some of you are aware of. And the other is judges now on a regular basis have to review public health data. I never used to have to do that. So we still have to constantly monitor to make sure it's safe to do what we're doing. We had to move everything online last year during the pandemic. Now we're back to a hybrid situation where a lot of things are in person. Some things are still handled over Zoom. And that's going to continue permanently because we found that it works better than we thought. Not for all hearings, but for some hearings. So if you've got a procedural case in my court, you can pay your lawyer to travel to the courthouse, and maybe your lawyer's, from another state. They're going to charge you for the drive time. They're going to charge you for the time they're waiting around, and it's going to take a lot of money for that 5-minute procedural hearing. But if they Zoom in, it saves the litigants money in what they pay their attorneys. And the attorneys don't complain about it because they can take more cases. So it's they like it. So for those procedural type of routine things, it's a really good accommodation for people, keeps costs down. We also, to do video hearings, had to figure out how to do staggered scheduling. It used to be if you ever had anything in the circuit court, you go there and there's 25 things on the docket at the same time. And so you're paying your lawyer to wait there for 3 hours. Well, now we schedule your case as a specific 10-minute time slot. Now, we get a little bit behind, but we're not as bad as a doctor's office, I like to say. But you know, we do our best to try to accommodate that. But that saves people a lot of money, a lot of time. So the staggered scheduling is here to stay for us, whether it's in person or on video. And then the other changes, we provided public access online through the YouTube channel. We did that to provide public access when the courthouse doors were locked. When they unlocked, a long time ago, or early in the pandemic, we unlocked them, I kept using the YouTube channel. I keep my videos up on there. Some judges take it down right after the hearing, which is perfectly fine. Some judges are no longer doing YouTube, which is fine, because the courthouse doors are open. You can come sit in my courtroom and watch what we're doing. But I'm still continuing the YouTube access for our criminal docket and for our general civil docket. I have stopped putting the family division docket, the divorces and custody, on YouTube. The public newsworthiness of those cases is a little lower. You always see newspapers reporting on crimes. They hardly ever report on divorces unless it's someone famous, right? So the divorce cases have less public interest and more potential for embarrassment of the litigants. So we're not putting those online. They are open to the public. Like I said, you can come in the courthouse and watch. So we're providing what I consider enhanced public access on the YouTube channel and still continuing that. Right now, I think I'm in the minority of judges around the state that are continuing that. I think the Supreme Court's going to encourage my colleagues to continue doing that in some fashion, so we'll see some increases in that. I did it for public transparency and accountability for the courts. What I was surprised to see was the public interest. We now are over 1,600 subscribers to our channel. It's Judge Aaron J. Gauthier, if you want to go check it out and subscribe to it. We've had, in the year and a half we've been up and running, 250,000 views of Sheboygan Circuit Court hearings. And that surprises me. And I've heard from a lot of people in the community that say, I watch it. And that they watch it because we leave the videos up. They don't have to take time away from work to go to court and watch court, or even to watch it during their work day. They can watch it in the evening. So there are people that do that. I had one person told me, I watch you at 2 in the morning. I'm like, well, you should be sleeping. But people like to watch what's going on, and it gives them a direct access to what's going on in the courts. So I think that's good because it informs the public of what's going on. An informed public is an involved public. And we've actually gotten some feedback from people, some questions, and what we did is we created, obviously if you're watching a court hearing, I've disabled comments. So that can go sideways awful fast. But we figured there's some questions, so we created a series called Ask the Judge when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So I've got some videos on the channel you can look at under the Ask a Judge playlist where the comments are enabled. So if you like something you see, you can say so. If you don't like something you see, you can say so. If you have a question, you can ask it. And we've done some videos answering some of those questions. And a couple of them, quite honestly, raised a pretty good issue, and we changed something we were doing. So we're always trying to be responsive to that. So go check that out. That's what we're doing. We've gone back to jury trials. We did felony trial last week in Sheboygan County. In Presque Isle County, I'm in the middle of one. We've got quite a backlog, so from September to October, over an 8-week period, we're doing 7 jury trials that are several days each. So we're really trying to get through that backlog of cases. Some of them are people that have been in jail for over a year waiting for a trial. So we got to get through that. Our drug treatment court program, this year, 2 big things, one big, one minor. The minor thing is we changed our name from drug court to recovery court, which seems like a minor change, but it's a little more positive emphasis to our participants of what we're doing and what we're about. And the major thing is we got state inspected this year for certification. All problem-solving courts have to be certified, and this was the first certification of this program in the 12 years it's been in existence, and we passed, and we are state certified. Had to make couple minor changes to the program to do that. I'm real proud of that program. Judge Pavlich started it in 2009, and it's one of my biggest priorities as a judge. It's a team approach with everybody from a prosecutor to law enforcement to probation to treatment provider, all on the team. And we meet every week, and we meet with these participants that are struggling with substance abuse problems. This is not a soft on crime approach, it's a smart on crime approach, and the data supports that. If I send someone to prison on a drug case or drug-related case, it's gonna cost you, the taxpayer, $32,000 for one person for 1 year in prison. We have 20 to 25 people in our recovery court program at any time, and we get the whole thing done for about $125,000 to $150,000 a year. I'm not great at math, but those are pretty good numbers. And the recidivism rates, the repeat offender rates are much lower. For people who don't go through a drug treatment court program, about 20% of them will reoffend within 3 years when they're done with the court process. For people who have graduated from a problem-solving court statewide, it cuts it in half, down to about 10%. For our Sheboygan County program, it cuts it down to 4%. So we've really got, it results in greater safety for the community. That's some of the questions I have is, people watch on the YouTube, now they don't see the drug court, the recovery court review hearings that we do every week, because we don't put those online, because we talk about their kids in foster care, their health, their physical health, their mental health, counseling, so we don't put all that on YouTube. It's counterproductive to their recovery, frankly. I wish you could see it, though. There's some amazing things that happen, some heartbreaking things and some heartwarming things. But the question I get from people, they only see what they're charged with, and then they get recovery court and they're let out of jail. And so I get questions, how is this safe for the community? But it makes the community safer. 100% of our graduates, when they graduate, they are full-time employed, unless they're retired or disabled. And I can tell you, 100% of the drug addicts at the beginning of the program are not full-time employed. They have to work in the program, they have to work hard, we hold them accountable. And it works, it saves you money as a taxpayer, it makes our community safer. I'd go on for hours about the recovery court. So those are the main things that are going on in the circuit court this year. Any questions that you would have this year?
I have a comment, I have a question. Comment is I'm just absolutely impressed with the recovery court, because I worked with a young person who went through it. And they're just a sterling example of the good part of that. The question is the same question I asked you last year. How has the legalization of marijuana affected your docket?
Well, it hasn't really affected my docket much, because most marijuana cases prior to the legalization were misdemeanors, and that's handled in the district court. So there weren't a whole lot of felony marijuana cases. The drug teams like to focus on more harmful drugs than marijuana, even before it was legal. So it hasn't really affected my docket.
Okay, but in terms of your perception, because I think that was my question last year, your perception about how things are, how it's being received, or is it being handled well in the county? Because I know that it's crazy. I mean, all of a sudden, it's every community's.
Oh, yeah. And that's, there's arguments pro and con for all of that. The standard answer I give people is kind of, gotta stay neutral as a judge, right? But to say, I did not vote for the legalization. I worked as an assistant prosecutor for 6 years, so you can guess what my thoughts were on that. I don't think it's a healthy thing, but, I could be wrong. But what I also will say is the sky hasn't fallen like I thought it would.
That's what you said last year.
Yes. So the sky still hasn't fallen.
Okay, appreciate it. Any more questions? Go ahead.
So I've watched the YouTube. I really am happy that you're leaving them up. I'm happy that you leave them out there for a while, because I'm one of those people that don't necessarily have time to watch it right while it's happening. It could use a search button so I could find things a little easier. I've struggled with that, so that's my feedback. If you figure out a way to search a case.
Well, that's on purpose, to be
Okay.
honest, because there's some competing things, right? So people could go on there and find the videos and misuse them to harass people.
Okay.
So there was some concern about that. But also, crime victims like it because they don't have to go to the courthouse. They can watch it. They can watch it in the evening. So rather than name each video the name of the case, we keep it a pretty generic name, So you can't go back and find a specific case all that easily past like the first couple days. I do create playlists based on the date of the motion day, so you can find, but you still gotta spend some time. And that's the only thing that's not very convenient, but that is by design to try to minimize the misuse of it for some of these embarrassments.
Any more questions or comments? Thank you, Judge Gothier. Appreciate you coming to visit us and keep up the good work.
All right, we'll see you next year.
Thank you. Blight ordinance, we've adopted this once already, but due to a misstep, we didn't get it published, so we have to adopt it again and get it published. Was there any questions? It was a misstep on the board's part. Is there?
I make a motion for adoption.
Good job. Okay, there's a support.
I'll support it.
All in favor?
Aye.
New record. Okay, Hiawatha Road End abandonment. And who is going to be speaking for the subdivision? Oh, yes, come on. Is that button, push that button so that lights come on. Gotta hold it down. Just hold
There we
it
go.
down.
My name is Ken Newman. I'm speaking on behalf of the residents of the Chippewa Beach subdivision regarding the Hiawatha Road. It was mentioned earlier in the meeting that people don't want to see the road end closed. This is not an effort to close the road end. It's an effort to bring control to the road end, which we requested of the board back in October of last year. Installation of possibly no parking signs, some time limits as to how long it's open, and nothing was done. It has put the police in a very difficult position to come out there when people call in the wintertime because there's parking going on. There's an operation going on out there fishing-wise 24/7, which is creating noise, litter, and it's disrupting the whole area. So understand, it's not about closing the road end. If you look at the road ends in Mullet, Kohler, and also road ends here in Indian River, in Tuscarora Township, many of them have the same restrictions that we asked for back in October. So that's what we're seeking. Where we're at is we have to take it to the next level, which is taking it to the Sheboygan County Road Commission, asking them to abandon Hiawatha Avenue. I've lived along that area there for 41 years. Sheboygan County has not maintained it. They have put no signage in there. They have not leveled it. They have not brined it. They have done nothing to it. It's got trees growing into it. In the past, they have abandoned portions of that road, which used to be a 50-foot frontage on Burt Lake. They have abandoned part of that road to one of the abutting neighbors. So you've got a frontage on Burt Lake Road, which is now 34 feet. With the trees that are involved there, it's less than that. So what we're asking for here is that we be allowed, that the board approve the petition that we have submitted, which I believe you have a copy of, signed by seven of the residents within the township, asking the Sheboygan County Road Commission to abandon Hiawatha Avenue. What this will do is hopefully eventually lead to the property reverting back to the folks that live within Chippewa Beach subdivision, which would then allow us to put some sort of control similar to parking signs, possibly hour signs, in that roadway, which would help reduce the traffic, reduce the noise and the congestion that's going on there, And that's what we're seeking, that's what we're asking for the board to do tonight, is to approve that resolution. It still allows us the opportunity to go forward to the Sheboygan County Road Commission, whether or not the board approves. It would certainly be helpful. It would be nice if the board would do that. I think as members of the board, and what I've heard tonight, your efforts are designed to improve safety and quality of the community. So you're problem solvers. And that's what we're asking you to do, is be a problem solver, not a part of the problem. And I think that what we're asking for us to do here is to allow us to go forward to the Sheboygan County Road Commission and make our appeal to them, which is the next step that's outlined. Again, it will not close the roadway. People will still have access. The public access that are on Mullen and Kohler may have signage on them, but they're not closed to the public. People still have access to Mullen Lake. They would still have access to Burt Lake. And that's what our petition is asking for.
Thank you, Mr. Newton. You can add something if you'd like.
I also included in the packet copies of the plat, the corner of the plat where it shows it's dedicated to public use. There was a court case in Gladwin County in 2019 where folks, it was actually in a subdivision, a platted subdivision, Tuscarora Township offered up road ends to adjoining neighbors. They refused the lots, and they placed, the treasurer placed parcel numbers, taxes were assessed, and eventually they were sold to backlot owners via tax sale. The court case that challenged that actually awarded the parcels back to the plat. You can't do that. So in a platted subdivision, all rights to the roads are vested in the plat owners or the subdivision lot owners, which is spelled out on one of the pages. Rights of property owners in a recorded plat. So we're not asking, again, to close the end road. And by the way, I live on Wabi Avenue, so I'm in that subdivision. I have to say that. We're not asking to close it. We're asking for the County Road Commission to abandon the end of it from 139 feet where it's already abandoned. A portion of it is abandoned down to the lake, which will then remove the public access sign, but still leave it open as the public access, based on the fact that it's in a platted subdivision. I think that most of you, I mean, we've been in here several times, the neighborhood's been in here several times regarding the parking issue that we have, the traffic that it's created. I mean, we're being forced to drive left to center up a hill. The neighbors that did sign the petition are people who are not just on the lakefront, they're also on Shawnee. A couple of them are on Shawnee. They have problems getting out of the subdivision because of that parking. We did ask the police to come down and ticket. Some were issued. They were contested, and the courts said, no, you can't park and close the road, the lane, basically. So that's where we're at. As Ken pointed out, if you drive around, even in town, most of the roads that end on the lake here in town either have no parking signs, one's got a bench. I mean, people are still using them. They just have some controls. There's operations of hours, there's fire lane designation. They haven't been closed down for public use. There just is some controls in place. We have none. So that's why we're here doing this. Again, this is just one step in the process to get us to the County Road Commission, who may or may not agree with this. The final step would be for us the neighborhood to petition the state to to close it down because on the very last page of this, it says that whoever the local unit is shall operate and maintain the property so as to prevent and eliminate garbage, litter accumulation, unsanitary conditions, undue noise, and congestion as necessary. Nobody's doing any of that, and you guys have seen all the pictures. So, that said, I would like to make a motion that we allow this to go forward, a resolution that we allow this to go forward so we can take it to the next level to the County Road Commission.
Can we have a little bit of discussion first?
Sure.
Like discussion. Bob, go ahead.
Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is about Doug Dugan's commercial activities. I don't think we should be cutting off access because of one bad actor. Is our zoning director here tonight?
I am.
I would ask him if you wouldn't mind, if he could make some comments.
It's not just one, there's several commercial operations going on down there. So go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
And oh, by the way, welcome, and thank you very much for your service to the county.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sorry for putting you on the spot.
My name is Michael Turosk. I'm the Director of Planning and Zoning for Sheboygan County. And as several board members have mentioned, there have been some issues, for lack of a better term, particularly over the last year or so, with respect to various commercial activities. Mr. Duke was mentioned. Not to belabor the matter, but he submitted a rezoning application last year to help legitimize his shanty rental business that was withdrawn by the applicant. Since that time, there have been a number of complaints that I believe some of you are aware of with respect to storage of propane tanks and at least one shanty, as far as I can tell.
Which was filed by me on behalf of the neighborhood.
Right, so, as an aside, a relevant one at that, Mr. Duke was storing shanties on a friend's property right off of Chippewa Beach Road. Some of you might be aware of that location. We did get that rectified, but it would appear that there has been additional accumulation of tanks over the last however many weeks, months. We have, regarding the other complaint regarding a commercial use along Mohawk, the department has sent notices of violation to that individual. We did speak to that individual about the activities, and the individual indicated that he would refrain from storing and servicing recreational vehicles. This regards an apparent RV rental business that apparently has been long-standing, that precedes my time. So, as is the case everywhere in the county, we rely on the community to be the eyes and ears, because we can't be everywhere all the time. So if anything crops up, as has been the case apparently, that's when we would spring into action and send one of our staffers down to have a look and document whatever violation is there. So, we've talked to our attorney about Mr. Duke's operation, and at this point it's sort of inconclusive. I'm hearing that sort of different stories about the extent of the activities that are occurring along Hiawatha, that he's meeting clients and so on out there. But anyway, there have been some concerns in that neighborhood, and we, as far as enforcement goes, we have to adhere to the zoning ordinance, which, as many of you might be aware, is the law. It's adopted by the Board of Commissioners, and it is the law. And sometimes what some people might consider a violation turns out not to be, and vice versa. So, for example, if someone is storing, say, a single shanty. One shanty on a property does not constitute a violation. It could be his personal shanty. You know, as far as, say, the tanks are concerned, that's something that we have to look into. I mean, some of you would certainly argue, and rightly so, that if there's a proliferation of multiple tanks, that suggests that's related to his business, that is an accessory to a typical principal residential use. So that's something that we need to confer with our attorneys on. But as I pointed out at the front end of my spiel here, this has been, you know, hot button issue for the better part of a year now, so we'll continue to monitor it with your help. As far as the road abandonment, you know, that's principally the purview, as you know, of the road commission. I don't know if Brent is here this evening. I don't see him here. I can speak more to that, but we in the planning and zoning department would focus on the zoning aspect of what's going on, the violations, if there are any violations identified. And the process, I'll try to be brief, allow you to discuss, but the process as far as a violation is concerned, once a violation is identified, you know, we always try to get what's called voluntary compliance. That's the best scenario for everyone involved. We'll try to reach out if we can by email or phone first. If that proves unsuccessful, we draft an official, what's called a notice of violation. That gets sent registered mail, and that allows up to 30 days for compliance. If compliance isn't achieved, if the notices go ignored, then we send a second notice of violation. That allows up to 14 days. If that second notice goes unresponded, then we send a third and final notice that allows up to 10 days for compliance. After that, then we may seek a civil infraction, in which case fines may be levied. And we've certainly taken, you know, a number of violators over the years to the magistrate, and the magistrate has levied fines, and that typically sparks violators to comply. Just because a levy or a fine is levied doesn't mean the individual can continue in violation. They have to pay the fine and then comply with the ordinance. So that's sort of the process in a nutshell. It's very protracted. You know, there's a legal framework there and a process that has to be followed, of course. Yeah, like I said, we'll continue to monitor the situation there and elsewhere in the township. There are, you know, several violations that we've been alerted to in the township with, you know, the help of Mr. Ridley and Mr. Kramer. So we'll continue to monitor those and hopefully get resolution, especially on the more egregious violations. So I guess with that, I'll have a seat, and if you have any more questions, I'd be happy to.
I do.
Yes.
So I think one of the disconnects here that you and I have talked about in the past is the fact that if Mr. Duke were to apply for a conditional use permit, it would be at his home in Wolverine. And the fact that he's not actually conducting the business there, I mean, he's doing probably the clerical end of the work there, but the customers are parking in our subdivision. They were parking on the road until tickets were issued. Now they're parking in one of the unadopted platted roads. It actually is Hiawatha across from the access itself. And so he's parking his customers there. What's to prevent, I mean, we haven't seen any action on whether or not that is in your area considered illegal or not illegal. What is to stop anybody, let's say the Marriott travel trailers, from parking his travel trailers on any one of those? Because we have 9 of them. There are 9 platted unadopted roads in there. What's to prevent that from happening? I mean, what's our recourse here? Because that's, I think, the sticking point is that we haven't been able to hit that thing that stopped him from conducting business down there.
Well, right, and as you and I have discussed on several occasions, we did reach out to legal counsel, given your inquiry, whether or not what he is doing in that area triggers the need for a permit. And as I mentioned to you in a private conversation, that our counsel, at least at that time, indicated that no, that, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, I don't have an opinion in front of me, but that the special use would need to apply to the property on which the main business activity is occurring, that being in this case, the property or properties on which those shanties are being stored, and to a lesser degree where transactions are occurring. So that was where we left that.
Any more questions?
I have a question. I think the other problem that us that live in the area, I'm one beach up from that beach, is we don't know what they're in those shanties that are out there. There's people sleeping in them,
Yeah.
and they're waste, they're human waste. What's
Let us
going on?
finish our discussion here. I appreciate your
Okay.
comments, but we're gonna finish our discussion. I have questions, cause, you and I have talked about this. It's my understanding now, there's no halfway point. If this is abandoned, then the plat has the right to put up a gate.
No.
Well, that's not what I was just advised.
Yeah, that's,
'Cause it
I don't know
goes
where
from-
that came from.
It came from the road commission.
Yeah, I got
They
the
told
same
me the same
information.
thing.
Don,
Yeah.
wait a minute, let me finish my
Okay, go
question
ahead.
to you, because that, you know, we may be wrong, I wanna know, because, my understanding is that if the road commission abandons it, then it goes to the DNR and the township as to who will take over.
Township then DNRs.
Is it township
Chain
then
of title,
DNR?
I believe that's a chain
Chain
of
of
title.
title?
Who would have next?
Then would it
dibs?
be the plat?
It only goes back, what the county road commission told me was that it would go back to the township, it would go back to the plat unless somebody filed suit. And if somebody filed suit, then it could be, you guys could take it over and turn it into, something else.
They got
That
a
was
gate
my-
at the end of King Road.
King's not in the subdivision.
Don't
Okay.
care, they got a gate over
Okay,
there.
do,
Mike,
but it's
Mike,
not in
just a
the
moment, Mike,
subdivision.
just go ahead, Jen.
Okay, this is what I was told, that, if we decided to abandon the road, it would go to the DNR next. If they refused, which they probably would, it would go to the township if we wanted to take it over. If we didn't, it would revert back to the plat.
Okay.
Now, the plat would be the neighborhood. The neighborhood can then decide, if they can decide on the hours, they could also decide 20 years, even though you're agreeing now that it wouldn't be closed. A wise woman told me one time, look at 20, 50 years down the line, and what could happen. And once we lose control, once the county lose control, the plat, the neighborhood association, so to speak, could choose to do anything they wanted, including gate it off, plant trees, whatever they wanted to do. And this is, even though we have your assurance that this is not gonna happen, we would have no jurisdiction to stop it if the subdivision decided in the future to go ahead and do that. And that is my main concern. As you know, I was in favor of making some reasonable rules. I was outvoted. We said we didn't have the authority to do that in this case. Okay, but we did get some positive. Mr. Newman, I wanted to make sure you understand. We did do some positive things that we could do with the board. We did step up police patrols, which made sure that the roads were more accessible to the public. We also made sure that the littering, was more under control. We did what we could do. Those were positive steps forward to try and help the subdivision. This incident has been going on for a long time, but it has come to surface with such ferocity because of so many people staying home and not going to Florida or wherever they go in the winter because of COVID. And then it made more congestion down in the subdivision because people didn't leave for the winter like they normally do. They stayed there. And so there was more traffic and more congestion, and then the fisherman just says, hey, we've always parked here, what's the problem? I know Duke is a problem, but we can only do what we can do. That is not our problem to solve. That is the county's or the state's problem if they can solve it. You may be asking for something that can't be solved and you may have to live with it. And the final point is, the subdivision knew when you bought your houses that this access was there. And the old adage comes back to my mind, the subdivision grew up next to the pig farm, and then the people wanted the pig farm gone. And we all know why they wanted the pig farm gone. This is the same type of thing. So I'm totally against abandoning that road because I know what's gonna happen in the future. It has happened before. We have given up too many road accesses as it is, and I will not cut the access of the public down to their own lakes. So that's where my opinion is.
Stop, please, don't leave, go ahead, Don's been waiting to say something.
So this is the reason that I put this page in there. This actually is case law. And the case law, it says, public street dedication in a plat grants the owners of the parcels within a plat the private right to use said street, regardless of whether the township ever accepts the street. This easement right continues even if the street is vacated and fee vests in the adjacent landowners. In other words, the two people on either side buy the road and take it over as their property. So it still is considered a public road. Easement holders have a right to unobstructed passage along the right-of-way at all times. We can't gate it off.
Can I say something, Dawn, in answer to that? So in the research I did, I learned that there are all of these cases are different.
Yep.
There's user roads, there's road ends, there's all these different things. So each one of these cases may not relate to another case. So this is a judgment on this case, and it would take an attorney or some, very thorough research to go, okay, these 5 cases relate specifically to this road. So the bottom line is we're taking a chance. The plat says it's dedicated to the use of the people
public.
and the public.
Yeah, it does say that.
and
So
so-
we can't gate it off. That's my
Well,
point.
no, once we abandon it, you can. We give it to you then. We're saying, okay, we're giving it back to the plat.
We're
It says
reneging
it
on the
becomes
public
a-
use.
Because
Yeah.
it's
What we're doing.
private right to use, it's a
Yeah, we have
private right.
Yeah,
yes.
it becomes then, and again, good sentiment today that it won't change, but then, 5 years from now, geez, that problem hasn't gone away, let's do this, or let's do that. It's just,
Well,
you guys have great intentions, and I don't question those, but again, the future.
Perpetuity.
Yeah,
Well-
perpetuity and abandonment is abandonment.
Okay, Bob, you have a comment?
Before I make my comment, I just want to thank our zoning director for coming here. You probably got the toughest job in the county. And I know we don't always agree, but you sure have been responsive in the short period of time you've taken over that position. And I just want to thank you that. And I know during COVID, you were short of people and you personally came out and did a lot of this on your own. So I just want to recognize that and thank you. I don't want to be showing my age, but I just have to tell you, I remember that I could walk on the road from Olds Island, on the end of Olds Island at what's known as the Point, all the way to the beach. And I could, DeVoe Beach, and I could fish along there. And it's not that way anymore. And I see encroachment down here on the 2 road ends that affect River Street that I'm very concerned about. We all know how I feel about South Avenue. And I challenged Dawn, my colleague, hey, if you show me that the public will not be abridged, I have no problem with it. But I called the road commission, talked to Mr. Shank, and he said, Bob, if this happens, they can put up a gate tomorrow if they want to. And that's my concern. And until that concern's addressed, I just can't support it. But if something can be worked out, I'm always amenable. But you have to also remember that is the last access directly to the lake on the east side of the lake in this township.
hence the problem.
And, well,
It is the problem.
I
You've shut
understand.
them all down.
I understand, but as I told you, Dawn, I could, in view of these commercial activities, it's almost like we're using the nuclear option with a campfire. And I know it's very real to everyone, and I was the first person, as you remember, to propose a very short-term, I think it was 3 or 4 or 5 year ordinance only during the wintertime, cutting it off from 11 to 6, and the board didn't get it, didn't go for it, and I get it, but be that as it may, anything permanent, I'm very worried.
So the very last page that I put in the packet is the Land Division Act, Act 288 of 1967. And in there is a provision for us to actually shut the road down. So that is, what we're trying to do is not do that. We're trying to avoid petitioning the state to go through this process of actually shutting the road down. So, and I think that's probably what happened on King Road.
King Road is different, because sometimes they refer to that as a cartographer's mistake.
Yeah, you're right.
King Road
It's
came
not
up
like
short of the lake.
It's
The
not
neighborhood
platted,
can do,
so.
the neighborhood can do whatever they want. I mean,
Yeah,
we
so,
can't control it.
so this, in this case, I mean, that's, if we can't get them just to abandon it, return it to the plat, so we can leave it open for people to use, but control it, to the extent of, making sure there's no commercial operations going on down there, making sure that, people aren't using it inappropriately, causing all of the problems that we've been having. This is the last step, is to shut it down.
Get the chatter down there, just a moment, Jan. Please, people, go ahead.
I have a question for Mr. Turris. Mr. Turris, let me turn this on. Mr. Turris, is it possible for the county to have an ordinance, or do they have an ordinance already that would cover some reasonable times of use for this, the road end or the public access?
No, not in the planning and zoning department, there's no
Okay,
mechanism.
could they go forward with a certain ordinance for this specific, public access to make reasonable times of use or something like that to help, mitigate the problems in the neighborhood, or would that not be in your purview?
It's not within our wheelhouse.
Okay,
I think that's in our wheelhouse.
As I alluded to, our focus would be on identifying and getting compliance from anyone who's in violation in that area. But we don't have any mechanism or authority to draft an ordinance that speaks to what you just described.
okay, thank you.
I think Bob stated it as the elephant in the room was the commercial business going on down there, which tracks. So if you did something that would eliminate that, you're still gonna have people parking there and coming in, and then how long, and I've seen that. I mean, I saw it since I've been in office, that where somebody was granted a road end and now they wanna cut off access. And they promised that wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I know, but so we've asked for help with this by, posting hours, putting up, no parking signs so that they can't park up Frontenac and block one lane, forcing us to, drive, unsafely left the center of a hill, which seems ridiculous to me that we can't do that. We've asked for a fire lane so that nobody can park down through there. We've asked for all those things. We've asked for help. We've asked for help a bazillion times, and we've gotten nowhere. So that's why we're going this route. And again, we're trying not to close it because we don't want it closed. People on the lake want to use it. We use it for snowmobile access. We have ice fishermen that use it in the sub. We don't want to close it down. We want control over it. We either have to get some help and get control over it, or we have to go this way, and again, the end is that we petition the state. We've got enough proof that it's a mess down there. You guys know that. We've shown you pictures. Some of you have driven down there. So, that's what we're looking for, is some help. So we either go this route, abandon the end of it, give us some control, or you guys take control of it. I don't.
You're you
by
guys.
I know.
You're
I'm one of those guys too.
I think there's a conflict of interest.
There's not. there's no
There is.
conflict of interest.
Did
No,
you hear
there's
it?
actually not. I said I would live down the road. I'm getting no financial gain from this.
Your property value's going up.
And you're advocating a sign.
Okay,
Let's
I
not-
could say
listen.
that about a lot of things.
Let's time out, let's time out. Yeah, let's,
Outside of the.
stop, please.
No conflict.
Okay. But there's a motion, is there a support? There is no support, motion dies for lack of support. Hiring policy, Janet's been proposing a hiring policy, and we put it on hold last month,
Several months.
and, there it is.
Yeah, I appreciate, Dawn, you, critiquing it, but you've changed the whole thing. I mean, you wrote a whole new one. And the point is that I got this off the MTA website as an example of what we could use, and it's already been approved by the lawyer, she reviewed it, and now you're going back and redoing it all. So, I don't know what to say. I mean, I thought I pulled a good one out and edited towards what we could use in our hiring practices, and something we could put online so everybody that was interested in applying for a job knew the rules and what was going on, and I thought it was pretty self-explanatory, but I don't know what to say now, cause you've rewritten the whole thing.
I don't think it's rewritten, there's comments, but the whole thing is crossed out, so.
It's all crossed out.
That's good.
Well, so when I looked at this, Janet, I, immediately, my thoughts were is that this came from a corporate HR, firm, or department, because that's, and it looked like that we, tried to make some changes so that it would fit here. And that's where I had a problem with it, because, there's this, what was written would be something that I would see an HR department hand out to each one of their HR reps for each department, to carry out, and that's not what we have here.
Well, this came
I
off the
mean,
MTA website.
I couldn't find it.
West Bloomfield,
That's it.
Bob, it came from the West Bloomfield Charter Township, didn't it? And I edited
You
it to
should have said that,
general.
cause you keep saying MTA, and MTA doesn't have one.
Yeah.
But they did have this as an
They
example.
no, in one of their books, they say, like, and it's not in the red book, but it's a different training book. That selecting official comes from there. So it says, in our township, the selecting official would generally be the supervisor or the clerk of the treasurer, like, those are the,
They did have that
Yeah.
language. Bob suggested, cause he helped me work on it, that he said, let's use the term selecting official because it was a general term that he was used to using, and it just sounded more general.
but
we
that's the only thing
changed
that came from MTA.
We can change that to whatever you want, supervisor, whatever, but we just use that as a general term, selecting official, because the supervisor may not hire, may decide that the Parks Department can hire their own, like they do now,
As they should.
and so we give them authority to do that, we let them be the selecting official. It was just a general term.
Right,
But
that's
it
the
came
only
from the West Bloomfield
Okay, I wish you would've
Charter
said that
Township.
last time, when I was asking.
I couldn't remember the name right off the bat, but,
Um,
but anyway, that's where it came from, and it was on the MTA website. In
Which I
fact,
would-
Bob found it and he sent it to me, so
Which
that's
I would
where I got it.
expect to see something like that from West Bloomfield, because it's a huge township.
That's why I
They
edited it
have-
down to one
They
page.
have literally hundreds and hundreds of employees, so they would have an HR, they probably have an HR department, and they probably have, for each department, so for Parks and Rec and for whoever else is, whatever, the office personnel and, whatever other departments they have, they probably have an HR rep that is assigned to each one of those,
And that's
something
fine, and they
that's
can
way
have that.
overboard
But
for
that's why I
this.
edited it down to one page instead of 3.5, because we didn't need a lot of that other gobbledygook.
But the other thing is, like, and I've said this before, and this is my real problem with it, Janet, is that basically I can narrow it down to 3 positions that wouldn't be taken care of outside of this hiring policy. So like we talked about, we are not gonna need an assessing assistant and you pick that. John, who would be that person's direct supervisor, is gonna pick who works for him. Doug needs his crew. We're not gonna pick that crew, Doug picks that crew.
And they would be the selecting officials.
So, but this is the thing, Doug, we talked about this, everybody walks away and the snow needs to be plowed. We don't have time to advertise for 2 weeks, gather people, send emails, have meetings, and all talk about it. Doug's absolutely qualified to do that, and this restricts that.
No, it doesn't, because it says in here that the selecting official may be the township supervisor, the direct supervisor of the department requesting the employee, or the officer or employee of the township, and may be assisted by other township board members. We
Okay.
can say, go and hire someone, it's good.
Yeah, but you gotta have a board
Then
meeting
we gotta
to
go
do
here
that.
and say, prior to establishing the eligibility list for any position, the selecting officer now has to provide all this.
Unless
Then
he
the selecting
has-
officer has to have interviews, and the selecting officer has to notify all applicants in writing that they have or have not been selected for employment. We're not that, we're Indian River.
Well,
And so that's my problem, is it's gotta go to Indian River.
Bob, go ahead,
That's all.
Bob, just a moment, Bob, go ahead.
I understand everyone's concerns, but we're not Mayberry RFD anymore, and we're not really Indian River anymore. We're growing by leaps and bounds. I just think a minimal hiring policy is good governance. And if you have suggested changes you wanna make, I think we should do it. I think we need the equal opportunity statement in there, or whatever the lawyer put in there. I think we need a minimal hiring policy. It's just good governance. How you work it out, I just hope we can work it out.
Okay, I see what Donna's does is minimal. I see a great amount of work gone into it. I see a great amount of experience who's dealt with this kind. You two have probably dealt with a lot more than we have. I would suggest we table this for another month, and Janet, you and I and Dawn get together and try and come up with something that's a little more, condensed. We'll go over the whole thing and try and come up with something palatable to the entire board.
Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, I would recommend we might limit that to just 2 people.
I would recommend you two get together then.
Not me.
No, Dawn
no,
and
you're not.
Janet, because I see a lot of experience with Dawn, and I see a lot of work that's gone into it, a lot of.
I don't want a quorum.
Well, I'm telling you, Dawn and Janet.
Yeah.
But
So we
would be
can
good.
call it a workshop, it
Wonderful.
doesn't have to, it can be a
Doesn't have to
workshop,
be open.
several of us, yeah.
Has to be a
Yeah.
special
I
meeting.
think that's the only thing.
Yes.
We gotta tighten up.
Yeah, I
those
see,
big things.
And
even for-
Bobby has legitimate
Yeah,
um,
it's just.
Concern,
issues.
I understand that.
And
Gotta
if
be
we can all
logistically
work it out, I think it's gonna be to everyone's benefit.
I mean, I think we can lay out.
I think we tabled it too long, because we could have made these
Well,
I'd like to
adjustments.
I would
Yeah.
too, so
We
I
need to
asked.
hire
gotta-
someone by the time this
yeah,
gets out.
but luckily we've got some pretty stable people in these positions we're talking about. So let's make a point, we're gonna table it, you and.
During the
Dawn will
month
get together.
sometime we'll get together
Yes.
before the next meeting and get this ironed out.
Okay,
Great.
now, we're gonna table hiring policy, and we're gonna get on to hauling sludge out of the sewer plant.
I think we just kinda did that.
Hauling sludge.
You sent it to Wisconsin.
Yeah, that was a good segue there.
Did you, I sent it out beforehand, you got a chance to look at it, it's just maintaining the status quo.
The
It's
what's it called?
biosolids,
Yeah.
Michigan agribusiness, they're
Yeah.
really, Mead and Hunt is really likes them. They're keeping their price the same, there is a testing fee increase, the fuel surcharge is the same. It's all pretty self-explanatory. It will help us establish a better idea if we're looking 4 years out, we know where we're at.
Do we have to sign something, or we
Uh,
just approve it?
I
I
just-
didn't see a
just-
signature on it.
I'll just approve it, we'll just approve it,
Just let
and, yeah,
Tammy know it's been.
Yep.
How much is it?
it's the same thing, it's per gallon, they haul the sludge.
I would make a motion that we accept the.
Bobby makes that motion, is there support?
I support.
Jan supports, thank you, all in favor?
This has been a rough day.
Trade you.
It's just another day in the
No,
neighborhood.
you really don't wanna trade me.
Okay, next one is the MDOT resolution. We have this is they've changed their parameters, MDOT has, and we have an agreement with them, which deals with the fish. They just wanna have things worded just a little bit differently. And it's more, it isn't names, it's positions. I think that's, and I did put a call into MDOT to get some clarification, but it's pretty, self-explanatory. They list only titles, not names. And I
So if we
think,
sign this one,
we did this once already, performance resolution for, municipalities. And Dawn went so far, title and or name, we be it resolved that following positions are authorized to apply to the department for necessary permit work within the state highway. And we are working, we do at different times work in the state highway right away. But, right now, we're just on the fish, so that's our only permit, outstanding permit, so.
so would that be like you or Doug?
Well, it'd be supervisor, it could be maintenance supervisor. In fact, I would recommend, and clerk generally.
So let's put those names in and move it that way.
I would say that would be a good idea. Maintenance, the supervisor, maintenance or clerk, then maintenance supervisor.
Bobby, could we have your microphone on?
It was making all that noise, let's see how we do.
My bad battery then?
Apparently I was yelling loud enough.
It says resolution, so generally a resolution is a, roll call. So let's do a roll call. No, wait, first we need a motion. Bobby makes the motion, is there support? Bob Kramer supports, roll call please.
Kramer?
Yes.
Webb, yes. Ridley?
Yes.
Slavic?
Yes.
Vance?
Yes.
Okay, great. That resolution is carried. Road signs, I put that on there. Getting requests to put road signs up, and I don't know if I wanna do that because it would come back, all of a sudden, everybody wants a road sign that says slow, children playing, and there's 16 retirees out there. They just want people to slow down. But there are a couple of, and whenever I go to the road commission, they say, are you willing to pay for the signs? If it's a sharp curve, which kicks up a lot of dust, or it is a dangerous curve, I bring it to their attention and they go out and they measure it, and if it doesn't, I just want your thoughts on, cause it's spending our money, spending the money without, it's too arbitrary for me. I felt somebody calls me up and says, I want people to slow down on my road, can you put a caution, slow, something ahead? But I'm getting a lot of those calls. So, is it anything you're interested in supporting, or you wanna kick it back down to the road commission?
Well, what do you recommend?
Something I've been dealing with all the time, with the road commission, and I think, chief, of wherever succeeded in getting signs put up arbitrarily by the road commission,
I was just gonna say Brent has some pretty strict parameters of
he really does, he goes by.
his vision, and I think we leave it at that. If we start getting,
That's the
we
way I
didn't put
feel.
the signs up for you, that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying, we
that's-
didn't do
That's
that,
kinda
so
how I
where do we?
feel.
Do you have to pay for the signs?
I get a lot of phone calls, what's that?
Do you have to pay for the signs up north of the speed sign, or was that something the county did?
On Chippewa Beach?
No, on 27.
27 up to
I think the county did that, I don't recall.
Okay, so we were successful once.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I would just defer to Mike's experience personally.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's just like, I don't like this thing about, I respect, cause I sit there with them and I watch people speed and the dust kicks up and people doing donuts at the end of the road, a lot of things, and it's, I keep telling my chief to give me a badge, a ticket book, and a gun.
You would make the worst cop.
I would make the worst guy. You think Barney Fife was bad?
I don't want you to have to make those decisions, I don't.
Well, I
don't think
appreciate it,
that's a
I
good
don't,
idea.
okay, that's good,
So
that's
Mike,
it.
you're saying it just could be really quickly a slippery slope, and we're putting
It's-
signs everywhere.
We get a lot of requests from people. In the old days it happened, I still have a turn sign in my front yard from back when John Nichols worked in 1995. In front, he came and put a sign up there just to show how the road turns instead of going through the woods of my property. And you can't get that done anymore. So that's kind of where I'm at about that. I don't like the arbitrary feel of having to say that works or that, something I'd rather stick with.
Leave it to
Slippery
him.
slope, we gotta be careful about that.
Okay, appreciate it. No support. Okay, citizen comments, if you have a citizen comment? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Good evening. I don't know how many were here at the last meeting, but the budget meeting. I was very disappointed in how it was working. It was way too little, way too late. After Jan said that in 5 years, our township would be broke, you continued to press on with a blown-up budget. I know you don't treat your personal budget that you make out for your house every year like that. I can almost guarantee all of you are very responsible people. So why would you take the budget for our township and just pad it when you knew that we're running out of money in 5 years? We're not a big corporation, we don't have billions of dollars in the bank. So you just don't do a budget because big corporations do it like that. On the other hand, just because all the townships, other townships pad their budget doesn't mean we should do it. My parents taught me if everyone jumps off the bridge, are you gonna jump off the bridge too? No, if it's not the right thing to do, you shouldn't do it. So what's gonna happen in 5 years? I know what's gonna happen in 5 years. You're gonna raise our taxes. And I'm not happy about that either. So I don't understand why you can't start the budget in April or May and give the citizens who care the budget to look at so they can come in and ask the questions and hopefully help you or get you to understand what's important to us to help you create a budget that's more friendly and is easier on all of our pocketbooks. Finally, if you treated the budget like you just are trying to treat this hiring policy, we might be in a really good state. Again, we need to start earlier on the budget, and we as citizens need to help you to be responsible. It's our money, I know it's your money too, but this can't go on like this. So I'm please asking you to take that into consideration in next year's budget, to start earlier and to make us part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Public comment, Mr. Odenwald?
Thank you, good evening. I would ask, did you publish the final budget online, and if you haven't, if you would, please?
It's there.
It is there? Thank you. In the name of transparency, the treasurer's report is not just a recital of the bank account balances. I relate to the Indian River Sportsman's Club and the Kiwanis treasurer's reports that are far, far more detailed than what we get here every month. I again ask that the entire board express their support for and actively work towards placing the check register on the website in real time. Hiring policy. Acme Township, 4,700 population in Grand Traverse County, has a hiring handbook online. No reason why we shouldn't do the same. I echo Bob's comments. It's not Mayberry. It is necessary, it is logical, it makes sense. Please work in that direction. I have previously expressed my opinion about fighting losing battles at the board level regarding the Biden flag, if you recall. FOIA is a similar losing battle. The judge, I'm sure, would agree with me that that law is extremely clear. And I won't argue about FOIA. I will simply file a suit to compel, and I will prevail. So please get off FOIA. Just do it. It's the right thing to do. Conflict of interest, per the Oxford Dictionary, a situation in which a person in a position to derive personal benefit from actions or decisions made in their official capacity. How is this not a conflict of interest? Sat there for 5 minutes advocating a position, a side, in a situation that you'll be voting on. Despicable.
Public comment. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to commend our maintenance department. We walk up and down the street with the streetscape, the sidewalks are clean, the beach is nice and clean, the parks are nice and clean. So Doug and his crew are doing a fantastic job this year.
Gretchen Burse. I live on Waubee Beach, on Waubee Road. And I would just like to comment to the board about the responsibilities that I think the board has toward the public, which I think have been somewhat ignored in the last week or so. I have had problems trying to find out what was going to happen tonight. Excuse me. The township website has not been clear. So I have spent some time trying to think how I can put some words to what I have noticed. And therefore, if you'll excuse the use of my notes here, which are more than notes, I'm going to read this to you. I think the responsibilities of the township board toward the public are the following. Number one, there should be the notice of place, time, and date of every meeting, regular or special. It should be posted. Where and when should it be posted? I think it should be timely. The agenda for all meetings should be made available well in advance of the meeting. How does someone access the agenda? How many days prior to the meeting must it be accepted so that it can be on the website? Is the agenda published where it can be referenced easily, therefore on the website or in the local paper? And how much prior to the meeting? And number three, is there a record of the meeting? Are the minutes complete enough to be understood by someone who has not been in attendance? What was discussed and what was decided? Where are the minutes posted and how soon after the meeting? July's board meeting has still not been posted on the website. That took place a month ago. It would also be nice if when I came in the door tonight, I had a copy of the agenda so that I would have known whether I could speak to pieces of the agenda. Something was taken off the agenda tonight, and that made a difference to some of the people who were in attendance here this evening. Transparency is badly lacking in this board.
Scott?
Scott Swanson, for anyone who doesn't know that. In correspondence, you did refer to a letter that I wrote regarding FOIA and some difficulties we're having getting some information. I sent that to you Friday, and I understand it's probably a little tight turnaround now, but at the end of the letter, I did ask for a response, and I do hope to get one on that. I think some of the paths that you're currently pursuing in regard to FOIA are wrong from both a legal, ethical, and probably practical standpoint, if indeed you want the trust of the community. And the issue we're dealing with right now is the sewer thing, and I think Bob is trying to do some things, but there's some other things that we want to see there as far as transparency. And I would advise you that, I said this often over the years, I've been doing this for like 30 years, when you get into a question of transparency with the board, transparency, the response that's appropriate is not, what do you mean we're not being transparent? We're telling you everything we want you to know. We want to know things that go on beyond. That's important for a couple of different reasons. People need to know kind of what all goes into decisions. I need to know in order to do valid reporting on things. I mean, I'm not just here to regurgitate. I need to kind of analyze some things and look at it. And in doing that, I need raw data. not just final decisions, or not just, I guess, things that you deem important, because the public may deem other things important. I don't think it's appropriate. I think the default attitude of a public body or any public servant should be that they want to tell the public as much as they can. Not find ways to exempt things, not find ways to charge things, to find ways to discourage the public from inquiring. You want an informed, I believe Aaron said earlier tonight, you want an informed and involved public. And I don't feel I'm getting that right now. I've sent you a letter explaining my rationale, and I hope you would respond. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Public comment? Go ahead, James.
FOIA was adopted in 1967 as the citizens of this country were more and more aggravated in trying to get information from their government. It's a minimum requirement. It means you have to meet those standards. It doesn't mean that you should use them as a hammer against the public, in my opinion. There's no reason for you to withhold information from people who are asking for it. We just want to be involved so that we can all have a better community. So please stop using FOIA as a hammer. As for legal, I'm not a lawyer. I've worked for lawyers. I've been both a controller and an assistant controller in law firms. I can remember to this day a class I had long ago taught by a gentleman who is both a JD and a CPA, and he started out by telling us the two most dangerous things in the world. One is an attorney with a calculator, and the second is an accountant with a law book. And I have remembered that to this day whenever I think that I'm being asked to weigh in and give a legal opinion. I do not have the education, the background, or the authority to do that. I know that even when we've had legal counsel, we have not always been well served by that, and it has cost us tens of thousands of dollars. So please be careful when you stick your neck out and offer legal opinions. One case is not an opinion. It is not thorough legal research. And I, like other people in this room, do believe that if you own property in an area and you set the board up with information as a public member of this body over here, you don't have the right to do it over there. And I would admonish you from doing that in the future. Thank you.
Public comment? Public comment is closed. Board comments? Janet, do you have any? Bob? Don?
I have one comment.
Go ahead.
I've temporarily taken over the webpage, just helping out, and I'll continue to do that as long as I'm needed. And if you have any questions about the webpage or suggestions, please call me anytime, day or night. Send me an email. Knock me side the head. Whatever.
Appreciate your hard work on it. Thanks. Thank you. Don?
The only thing that I wanted to say in regards to the FOIA and the FOIA process, initially when these FOIAs first started coming through after I was appointed, my first thoughts were that to tell Bob to stop sending emails. That was my first thought, because they're advisory. They're not doing anything in official capacity. I think you guys are doing a great job with your meetings, with your sewer subcommittee meetings, of keeping people in the loop as to what's going on. I mean, you guys had a half-hour one just before we came in here. I don't want to overtax an already burdened system with give me all your emails. FOIAs are supposed to be for data. It's supposed to be very narrow. So you're supposed to ask for a thing, not everything. And that's been, that's been what the training has told me. I've already taken a couple of online trainings on this. So, and I'm going to continue. I've signed up for 2 more. I would suggest that all of us do it, because there's a lot of information out there and way more needs to be understood about this than I think what we currently understand. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Don. Bobby?
I have 2. First of all, to Ron, I don't want you to think I'm not listening to you when you asked about these reports. The reports that I would either ask Bob to add to the website or provide at the board level during meetings are gonna come from the general ledger program, which is in the clerk's office. She's getting settled, taxes just went out, and I wanna talk to some other townships. So I agree, this is how it was done when I came in. There were never any questions, never, anything from the board. So that's how it continued to be done, but I can see where there are definitely other reports out there. The suite of programs that we now have with the SMA is a plethora of information. So I will get on that. And then to the budget. Just a couple of things. I don't think that we're gonna go broke. I don't remember you saying that, but I don't think we're gonna go.
Not that, Jan.
Oh, that Jan, okay. I don't think that we're gonna go broke in 5 years. We don't, like you said, we don't have a lot of money. And, there's some budgeting practices within the township that, again, have been in place. I heard some things during discussions at the last meeting that possibly we could do better and we could change. And I think probably the board agrees that as we go forward, we may implement some new things. We have to continue to budget in a manner that fits with our auditing standards, but there is room for some different things. And we also, you said, our taxes will get raised. We can't do that. We get 1 mil. There's, we would have to go out to the people in order to get any other kind of tax. So we can't just arbitrarily raise taxes to to get more money in the township. We have to work with what we have, and that's what we try to do, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dawn, do you have another comment?
Yeah, on the budget, one of the things that I'm looking for is ways to eliminate waste and reduce cost. So we just worked in the last couple of weeks on, for example,
You want me to say it? Because I don't want to hear your tongue.
on payroll. Today we're writing paper checks. So we got with BSA, the software company, and found out that they can actually do direct deposit for everybody's checks.
Good
And we're in
idea.
the process of doing that. So we've got almost everybody's paperwork, so we can load it in. It will save time. Time is money. So
That's
those
right.
are the things that we're actually working on to help keep the budget in line.
And I applaud your efforts for your ideas anyway on the cemetery. It's very needed.
I do have one comment. We are growing. We are not Mayberry anymore. We are. This is getting, and it's something we have to address as a growing community. But at the same time, we have a very, very educated community, and I feel more and more people are getting involved. I just compared to what we were 10 years ago in terms of people's comments, they're much more, I want to say eloquent, much more informed. But there's still something that bothers me, and and I know you have every right to come up here and say what you want to say. But I think that using words to take shots at board members is almost beneath us when you come here. And that's the way I felt tonight, and I felt like the last time, and I owe Bobby an apology because she worked on the budget, and I felt like I left her under the bus. She worked on the budget, she was available, and she had a family situation, so she couldn't be here. I just feel like attacking the board members, and if you feel like attacking somebody, please attack me. Because I think I'm stupid enough to take it anymore. I can take body blows. I've been taking it for 12 years. I respect your opinions. I sometimes get disappointed with the way you express them. So yeah, I always want you to feel that you can say them. I just, we're doing the very best we can. And I appreciate your input. I appreciate the time that you take away from your homes to be with us and help us govern better. But like it's been said, we are on the cusp of a change. We need to keep an eye on that. So with that being said, no more board comments. Is there a motion to adjourn? Yeah, need a motion.
Second.
Seconds. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.